Really screwed up, and I'm not referring to his criminal trial, which has him sitting in prison right now, but it has to do with something that happened right before he got arrested. If you've seen the Netflix documentary about Diddy, Diddy The Reckoning, which 50 Cent produced, there's some footage there that had never been seen before. This is a photographer that Diddy hired to follow him around and
Don't trust nobody. In Hollywood, specifically, when you get there, a lot of people don't know how to say no. That's the difference between New York City and California.
You know how they say the real story starts after the trial? Well, guess what? We're at that point now. While the headlines scream about Diddy's 4-year sentence, 2 guilty counts, and basically a slap on the wrist compared to what prosecutors wanted, the quiet story is just about to explode behind the scenes. Because here's the thing, when a man like Diddy falls, he rarely falls alone. The people who partied with him, did business with him, or just looked the other way, yeah, they're not sleeping easy tonight. Not with the feds still digging, not with the tapes out there. And especially not now that Joe Rogan and 50 Cent have decided to stir the pot, dropping hints that this is way bigger than just one mogul's conviction. This isn't one story. It's about a whole network of powerful names who thought they were untouchable until tonight.
Somebody who didn't win diamond, somebody who's still going on tours, somebody who's always been the opposition to Puff. You know, when you seen 50 show those funeral flowers that he got from Diddy, this has been an ongoing thing with them, and it's never going.
So we've seen the headlines, 2 guilty counts, 2 decades max, but the feds were gunning for life and didn't get it. That means Diddy's still holding serious leverage. And in his world, leverage isn't just power, it's blackmail. Acquitted of racketeering? Sure, but the streets don't care about legal technicalities. They care about the tapes, the freak-off footage, and the names buried in his little black book. When you're staring down 20 years, loyalty suddenly becomes negotiable. And Diddy's inner circle, Meek Mill, Oprah's quiet ties, Stevie J's party planning, Ashton Kutcher's hot mic moments, they just got a lot more tense. Rogan didn't just react to the Jamie Foxx poisoning rumors, he amplified them. 50 didn't just track Diddy's fall, he weaponized it. These aren't spectators, they're arsonists, and they're making sure the fire spreads. Netflix doc Time to Hit Hardest, podcast speculation engineered to depressurize. This isn't gossip, it's a siege. Because if Diddy flips, and let's be clear, the feds are still digging, those freak-off guest lists become subpoenas, those private island stories turn into indictments, and every celeb who ever laughed off the rumors, they're about to face a very public reckoning.
Diddy said to her,
Showed her
she
the video.
testified
Showed her the
that
freak-off video.
he showed her a video of a freak-off that she participated in and said, if you don't participate in another freak-off when we get to New York, I'm gonna put this video out. I'm gonna send it to your mother.
And that's coercion,
She
if
testified
it's true.
to that.
If the jury
if they believe her,
yeah.
that's coercion.
That's
They would have.
Let's start with the facts. On July 12, 2025, a New York jury delivered a split verdict. Not guilty on racketeering and human trafficking, but guilty on 2 counts of transportation for purposes of paid companionship. The charges stemmed from Diddy's alleged role in flying his ex, Cassie Ventura, along with male companions across state lines for what prosecutors called freak-offs, multi-day gatherings where Ventura testified she was pressured to perform with hired companions. The jury saw footage, they heard recordings, they weighed the evidence, and still walked away divided. But here's what they didn't see: the full reach of Diddy's network, the names that never made it to trial. The powerful figures who attended those gatherings and laughed at those jokes now find themselves staring down a scandal that's only growing.
We stumbled upon something. You know, it's a big white pentagram on the ground, candles, and it's like, okay. And then we keep looking around, we find somebody in a dog cage. A little lady in a dog cage, handcuffed behind her back.
Enter Joe Rogan. On his October 25 podcast, he didn't just toy with the idea that Diddy might have poisoned Jamie Foxx. He framed it like a real possibility, a natural extension of the mogul's alleged behavior. It's possible, Rogan said, leaning into the speculation with a tone that made it feel like he'd already connected the dots. That's totally possible. The claim, first mentioned by eyewitnesses at Fox's Netflix special taping, now had a megaphone. And when Fox himself dodged questions with a cryptic "God bless you," the internet took it as confirmation. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's Netflix documentary, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, dropped like a grenade, showing never-before-seen footage of Diddy mapping out his legal defense days before his arrest. The timing? Not accidental. The message? The streets are watching, and the list of names is longer than anyone realizes. Now, let's talk about that list, because jurors in Diddy's trial got a sheet with over 100 names, celebrities, executives, and artists who might be referenced in testimony. Some were witnesses, others were allegedly at the parties, and a few, just their names alone raised eyebrows. Usher, Britney Spears, Kanye West, and Michael B. Jordan. The question isn't just who was there, it's who knew what, who participated, and who's now scrambling to distance themselves before the feds come knocking. Because here's the thing about Diddy's parties, nobody walked in by accident. Oprah didn't just drop by. Ashton didn't stumble into those rooms. Naomi Campbell wasn't there for the decor. So when the feds start asking who knew what, the real question is, who's already lawyering up?
Maybe the judge is going to give him more than time served.
But we should say that the maximum he could get is 20 years.
And that's what I want to get into for a minute. Because this is some racist you-know-what. This man.
Take Meek Mill. His name came up early in the trial, not as a defendant, but as a regular at Diddy's most notorious gatherings. Photos from Meek's 27th birthday bash in Vegas, a rented mansion, lingerie-clad dancers, and a sushi spread served on a naked model, painted a picture of excess that even the industry considered over the top. Then came the leaked audio, allegedly featuring Meek and Diddy in a heated exchange, followed by sounds insiders described as a physical struggle. Meek called it a fake, AI-generated smear, but the streets weren't buying it, especially after Jaguar Wright claimed Nicki Minaj's team had leaked the recording themselves. She'd been waiting to drop that, Wright saw to WAVD TV, hinting at a deeper game of revenge and exposure. Meek's panicked ex-posts, first denying any involvement and then admitting he was present but not involved, only fueled the fire. And now, with Diddy facing sentencing, the streets are betting Meek's name is on a short list of those who could be called to testify, or worse.
Previous conversations with how, the rich and famous guys don't want to pay nobody. The reason this footage ended up in 50 hands is because Diddy hired the film crew to document the days leading up to the trial. He got arrested, didn't pay them, so now you got these guys sitting on this footage. Same thing happened when we talked about it at the hotel with the cap.
Then there's Oprah. Her name being tied to Diddy's world isn't new. Photos of them together at events, her silence during the Weinstein scandal, the questions about her South African school's abuse allegations. But the freak-off rumors? That's a bridge too far, even for her most loyal defenders. Insiders say Oprah's team has quietly been scrubbing old images, distancing her from the bad boy circle. But the internet doesn't forget. And when 50 Cent's documentary dropped, a fresh wave of memes hit, pairing Oprah's What I Know For Sure brand with Diddy's alleged What I Saw at the Party reality. The contrast is brutal. The implications? Career-ending. Because if the feds dig into who attended those gatherings, Oprah's moral compass reputation could crumble overnight. Stevie J's loyalty looks more like complicity with each passing day. The producer, a bad boy staple, wasn't just at Diddy's mansion during the Homeland Security raid. He was there with Diddy, standing firm even as red laser dots danced across his chest. "I'm never gonna stop being there for someone I consider a friend," he told the Breakfast Club, a defiance that read like a confession to some. Because Stevie wasn't just a guest at the freak-offs. According to Lil Rod's lawsuit, he was a coordinator, arranging encounters, travel, and NDAs. And when the feds start flipping witnesses, Stevie's brotherly rhetoric might not save him, especially when old clips resurface of him joking about handling the talent for Diddy's private events. The streets are asking, was that a punchline or a job description?
Phone. So now it's just your word against a billionaire. You're gonna lose. Read this right there from that young.
Ashton Kutcher's Hot Ones moment? The one where he froze at the mention of Diddy party stories? Yeah, that clip has aged like milk. Because the actor wasn't just a face in the crowd. He was front and center at the white parties, the after-hours gatherings, and the events where the rules allegedly bent until they broke. His awkward silence spoke volumes, and when you add in his and Munice's controversial letter supporting Danny Masterson, a man now convicted of assault, suddenly Ashton's "I can't tell that one" takes on a darker meaning. Is he protecting himself, or is he protecting someone else? The feds love a paper trail, and Ashton's got receipts.
Starting to come out in the early days of the Diddy trial. This, of course, is P. Diddy. Surprise, surprise, he's a creep. Surprise, surprise, he's done horrible.
Naomi Campbell's name keeps coming up in the same breath as Epstein's. And that's not a coincidence. The supermodel's ties to Diddy go back decades. Private islands, exclusive gatherings, the kind of access that never comes without strings. When she told interviewers she knew Epstein but didn't know about his activities, the internet called foul. Because Naomi doesn't just know people, she works them. And in Diddy's world, that allegedly meant funneling young aspiring models with promises of careers into situations they couldn't escape. The NDAs, the hush money, the way her name keeps popping up in lawsuits under phrases like procured talent. If the feds start treating Diddy's guest list like a roadmap, Naomi's passport could become Exhibit A. Here's the thing about power. It's only as strong as the silence that protects it. And right now, that silence is cracking. The Netflix documentary didn't just recycle old scandals. It dropped new footage, new witnesses, and new allegations that the feds could now treat as leads. The jurors who spoke after the trial, confused by Diddy's acquittal on the racketeering charge, suggested they saw enough to convict, but not enough to destroy him completely. That's a real problem for the A-listers who thought they were untouchable. Because if Diddy's legal team couldn't shut this down, what makes them think their PR machines can?
In the Diddy trial as the biggest one yet, guess what? Bingo, you won, because today was probably the most eventful day as far as things that happened that were said on the stand, and most importantly, things that the judge said, because Diddy almost got kicked out of his own.
You might think Diddy's sentencing closed the book. The cameras packed up, the headlines moved on, and the legal system patted itself on the back for a job well done. 2 guilty counts, 20 years, case closed. But the legal system? That's just the first domino. Because while the courts focused on paid companionship charges, the real story is in the patterns. The same names popping up at the same parties, the same non-disclosure agreements, the same sudden career derailments for anyone who talked too much. Meek Mill's freak-off denials contradicted by his own leaked audio. Oprah's shock at Weinstein's crimes was undermined by her South African school scandal, where young students alleged abuse under her watch. Stevie J's loyalty to Diddy starts to look like complicity when you see footage of him standing shoulder to shoulder with the mogul during that Homeland Security raid, red laser dots painting targets on their chests. These aren't coincidences, they're connections. And connections in Diddy's world? That's currency. Diddy didn't just throw parties, he traded futures. A record deal for silence, a movie role for discretion, and a mentorship that doubled as a gag order. Take Cassie Ventura's settlement. $30 million doesn't buy forgiveness, it buys compliance. And when over 70 lawsuits stack up, each alleging variations of the same dark activities, compliance starts to look like a pyramid scheme. Money flows upward, secrets stay buried, and participants either play along or disappear. That's how you end up with a situation where a man like Ashton Kutcher, who built a public image on fighting exploitation, resigns from his own anti-trafficking organization after writing a character letter for a convicted rapist. Coincidence? Or a man who knows exactly where the bodies are buried and who helped dig the graves? Let's talk about Ashton. His hot ones moment, the one where he froze like a deer in headlights at the mention of Diddy's party stories, wasn't just awkward, it was telling. This is a man who, alongside his then-wife Munice, publicly defended Danny Masterson, a man now serving 30 years to life for assault. They called him a role model, they vouched for his character, and when the verdict came down, Ashton quietly stepped away from Thorn, the organization he co-founded to combat the very crimes his friend was convicted of. The hypocrisy would be shocking if it weren't so calculated. Because Ashton wasn't just at Diddy's parties, he was a fixture. Photos place him at white parties, after-hours gatherings, and events where the rules of normal society didn't apply. And when you're that deep in the circle, you don't just walk away clean. You either become a liability or a witness. Right now, the streets are betting on the former.
Fearing for his life, not just while he was working for Sean Combs, but afterwards. He tells stories about physical violence, about a time where he actually had to drive 100 miles an hour to try to escape Mr. Combs, and says he didn't call the police because he worried that that would be a sentence.
Then there's Naomi Campbell, the woman who somehow manages to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Her name keeps surfacing in the same breath as Epstein's, and that's no accident. The supermodel's ties to Diddy go back decades. Private islands, exclusive gatherings, the kind of access that doesn't come without strings. When she told interviewers she knew Epstein but didn't know about his activities, the internet called foul. Because Naomi doesn't just know people, she works them. And in Diddy's world, that allegedly meant funneling young, aspiring models with promises of careers into situations they couldn't escape. The NDAs, the hush money, the way her name keeps popping up in lawsuits under phrases like procured talent and coordinated introductions. If the feds start treating Diddy's guest list like a roadmap, Naomi's passport could become Exhibit A. Especially when you factor in rumors she and Diddy dated in the early 2000s and that she was a regular at his most infamous gatherings, the kind of gatherings where, according to multiple lawsuits, the line between party and predation got blurred beyond recognition. But let's not forget Stevie J, the man who's been Diddy's ride or die through every scandal, every raid, and every explosive allegation. He wasn't just at the mansion during that Homeland Security raid. He was there with Diddy, standing firm even as agents swarmed the property. "I'm never gonna stop being there for someone I consider a friend," he told the Breakfast Club, a defiance that read like a confession to some. Because Stevie wasn't just a guest at the freak-offs. According to Lil Rod's lawsuit, he was a coordinator, helping arrange the encounters, the travel, and the payoffs. And when you're the guy organizing the talent for events that are now under federal investigation, loyalty starts to look a lot like being an accessory. The streets are asking, was Stevie just there for the music, or was he there to make sure the right people showed up and stayed quiet?
That was one floor above mine. So in terms of like the setting, it's a fairly decent chance that the room I'm describing is similar to where Diddy is. Yeah.
And then there's the money. $30 million to Cassie Ventura with undisclosed checks cut to others. That's the kind of payout that doesn't just hush individuals, it mutes entire networks. Because when you're Diddy, you don't just buy silence, you invest in it, you package it, and you turn it into currency. And that's exactly why the timing of 50 Cent's documentary feels off in a very specific way. Why Rogan's Jamie Foxx comments land like they were placed, not stumbled into. These aren't random takes, they're calculated moves. The real question isn't just who Diddy might drag down with him, it's who's been quietly positioning themselves to step into the vacuum. Who's been building leverage of their own? Who's been stacking favors, files, and influence in the shadows? And who's been waiting for the perfect moment to flip compliance into control? Here's what keeps us up at night. Diddy's not the only one with tapes. He's not the only one holding leverage. And if he does start talking, and let's be honest, 20 years in federal prison has a way of loosening tongues. The game changes fast. The first rule of survival in his world, deny everything. The second rule, have a scapegoat. So when the next name drops, and it will, ask yourself, who's really the villain here? The man in prison serving time for crimes the jury convicted him of? Or the one still walking free, still throwing parties, still trading futures like Monopoly money, while the rest of the world pretends not to see the bodies buried under the board? We've seen this movie before. The powerful man falls, the headlines scream, and the public moves on. But the system? The system stays the same, unless we start asking the right questions, unless we start demanding the right answers. So tell us, who do you think is next? Whose name are we all sleeping on? The one hiding in plain sight? The one playing the game just a little too well? Drop your theories in the comments, because this story is far from over. And remember, in a world where the truth is the most expensive currency, the real scandal isn't what they're hiding. It's what we're willing to ignore to keep the party going. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and as always, we'll see you in the next one, because the lights might be dimming on Diddy, but the spotlight is just getting hotter for everyone else.